Will BlackRock invest in the Ripple IPO? I've seen a lot of people, myself included, discuss the BlackRock XRP ETF potential. They haven't had an official filing yet. A couple interesting trust filings out of Delaware, but we haven't seen them announce the official XRP spot ETF yet. But we are watching BlackRock reveal their plans to invest in the SpaceX IPO, which is already oversubscribed, and they want to throw billions of dollars at this IPO. And so in today's update, I wanted to talk about the possibility of BlackRock actually taking a look at the Ripple IPO and discuss how they might want to get a little piece of that action as well. So in today's update, we're going to get straight on into it. Monday morning update coming in a little bit late this morning, and that's because my wife took my 2-month-old newborn son to the doctor for a checkup, and they confirmed that he is in the 90th percentile of height, weight, head, everything. Hopefully he's a smart boy too, but he's definitely big. And so a huge shout out to my wife. She's been feeding him like crazy. And I spent the morning with the 2 older children getting them fed. And then we went on a nice bike ride and daddy got his steps in. So we got it moving this morning, but let's get you this Monday market update. And I also want to discuss Ripple IPO. BlackRock, they might need a piece of that, huh? Iran has sent an updated proposal for a deal to end the war, but the White House believes it is insufficient for a deal per Axios. So President Trump is now expected to convene his top national security team in the Situation Room on Tuesday to discuss military options. A senior U.S. official said that if Iran will not shift its position, the U.S. will have to continue negotiations through bombs. Trump is reportedly considering resuming the Iran war due to Iran's rejection of many of his demands. Peace talks continue to show little progress. We're following up on the China deals. Looks like there was a little bit of progress made on trade, and China's going to mostly stay out of the way here in the Strait of Hormuz Middle East conflict as the United States looks to continue with the next move. We'll keep you guys updated on this situation. But the big threats to the market right now continues to be the Iran war and the fear, uncertainty, and doubt that it is spreading throughout the markets, right? The big threat is this Iran war. And because of the Iran war, inflation has been coming in hotter than expected. And so it's kind of like the dominoes, right? Because of the Iran war, now inflation's running hot. This is adding more pressure to the economy and the American middle class and poor that are already tapped out. And then if the Fed can't lower interest rates and if the bond market doesn't care either way and the bond yields just keep on shooting up, doesn't matter what the Fed does, the bond market's saying, nice try, pay me more. And this is where our 10 years going up over 4.5%, approaching 5%. Bond yields in Japan also going to record levels. And so the big threat, Iran war and the ripple effects from that. We have new U.S. Fed Chair Kevin Warsh is set to be sworn in on Friday. So we have him scheduled to come in, but he's going to be coming in to battle inflation. He can move the Fed fund rate lever, but is that going to be enough to give any sort of relief to the American people? This is what we continue to watch, and we're going to give you guys the economic data coming in this week here, Tuesday, April pending home sales data. We got a real estate update coming this week. Stay ready for that. Make sure you've subscribed and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of our content. Fed meeting minutes Wednesday. NVIDIA reports their earnings on Wednesday. We'll be watching the Philly Fed Manufacturing Index Thursday. Remember, these manufacturing indexes have been great in the leading indicators of where the U.S. economy is headed. And then we've also seen a tight correlation with the ISM Purchasing Managers Index, which is the nationwide manufacturing survey. The correlation with that and crypto bull run, specifically alt seasons, has been very tight. So we watch the Philly Fed Manufacturing, the Empire State Manufacturing surveys as leading indicators of the national survey, ISM PMI. And then we look to that, for being a leading indicator of where cryptocurrency is heading and our economy is heading as well. Basically, the boots on the ground in the manufacturing survey, they're getting that immediate feedback. The purchase orders are coming in or they're not coming in. Their warehouse is, oversupplied and overstocked, or they're moving product. So that's why it's such a good data point. And we'll be reporting that one, the Philly Fed, which is a smaller survey, but also leading on Thursday. We also get the University of Michigan consumer sentiment data on Friday. Remember, we are getting the worst consumer sentiment since they started taking this survey while our stock market continues to print all-time highs. We call this the K-shaped economy because you have one side of the economy, which is all-time highs, asset prices are pumping, everything's going good for those who own assets. And you know what kind of assets we like, right? Good cash flowing real estate, precious metals. We've already seen our digital assets run, but that's not done. We're still going to run a lot more for these digital assets. But if you don't own these assets, you're going to get left behind. The K-shaped economy sends asset prices higher, and then it sends sentiment, and it sends real purchasing power lower. And you also can call this stagflation, which is not a fun situation for us to be navigating right now as you're trying to just take care of your family, run your business, or as an investor. But that's why we've been focused on breaking this down, making it easy for everybody to understand, focused on the educational content that we've been bringing since 2020-21 so that you can understand and navigate it together with us. The biggest earnings event of the quarter have arrived, though. So big volatility expected in the market. But I want to talk about this BlackRock. We've talked about the XRP ETF, but what about them investing in the Ripple IPO? And the reason why this gets so interesting is because we're going to show you when BlackRock makes a move, they come in heavy. And we're going to show you what happens here when BlackRock makes an announcement, because it's all secret. It's behind closed doors. It's, with Bitcoin, it was all pet rock. It's not something we're interested in, not a big deal. And then they launched their most successful ETF, their IBIT BlackRock Bitcoin ETF. Then they do it with Ethereum. Now, they've also done a Bitcoin income ETF, I think they're working on as well too, if I'm not mistaken. They haven't announced the XRP ETF yet, but we really do think it's coming, right? I want you guys to let me know in the comments down below. Do you think that BlackRock's going to launch an XRP ETF? And then second, do you believe that they're going to invest in the Ripple IPO or get some of that private equity? And before we talk about that, I'm going to plug our sponsor real quick. If you guys haven't heard of iTrust Capital, this is the 3-in-1 solution for your digital assets and precious metals. They have the IRA, so you can get your retirement funds into these assets and institutional grade custody for free. This is a great platform that has the retirement funds over in the IRA. But then they have the two other products as well, the premium custody account, also free institutional grade custody, and then the treasury accounts for your business, your trust, your nonprofit. Now, when you use my link down below, you'll get a $100 funding bonus. Huge shout out to our sponsor, iTrust Capital. I'm drinking out of their coffee cup that they sent me a couple weeks ago. And so go check them out, linked up down below. BlackRock is trying to buy 13% of the entire SpaceX IPO in one order. Let me repeat. BlackRock is trying to acquire 13% of the entire SpaceX IPO order. They want 5 to 10 billion of the $75 billion raise. BlackRock manages 11.5 trillion in total assets. They're deploying from their conviction funds, not index funds. The IPO is already 10x oversubscribed before BlackRock even entered the chat. Hello, BlackRock. Welcome to the party. Let's have a good time, huh? Retail gets 30%. BlackRock wants 13%. Institutions are fighting over the rest like sharks. The ticker is going to be SPCX, not financial advice. I'm not telling you to buy it. I'm just telling you that BlackRock's making their move. It's going to be listed on NASDAQ June 12th. The largest asset manager on the planet just gave you alpha and you are not paying attention. And he's got the clip of John Travolta walking down the street. And so this brings us to Ripple and XRP, right? This shows you guys that BlackRock keeps these things under tight wraps until it's time to make the announcement. And when they do make an announcement and they've determined to make a move, it's not, oh, let's make a little allocation, let's participate, let's just go get a little piece of this action. It's no. We're going to need, 5 to 10 billion of the total $75 billion raise. They want 13% of the entire SpaceX IPO. And this reminds me of the R3 Ripple deal, because we've talked about pre-allocation contracts with XRP, and that was the best example. R3 had an options contract with Ripple back in 2016. It was a 3-year options contract to buy XRP under a penny for 3 years. They could execute it at any time. One of the best deals. Holy cow. Can you imagine? but they wanted 5% of the entire supply. And so we always point back to that to say, guys, pay attention. When these institutions make a move, it's not, let's just go participate and have a little fun. It's, let's go make a killing, metaphorically speaking. Let's go make a killing as it comes to profit back to their pockets. And so they move here. They want 13% of the entire SpaceX IPO. And we're already seeing this huge headlines are going across the tape last week on the Anthropic IPO. And there's actually been some issues. And I am actually really concerned about the IPO space right now because there's what happened, if you guys haven't been paying attention, and maybe I'll do a separate video on this, with the Anthropic IPO, and similar with the Ripple IPO, right? There's a bunch of platforms that are offering private equity and allowing you to buy shares in an SPV that is supposed to own the shares of the company, right? And the Anthropic board came out because some gal had gone viral saying that she made more money being a broker on Anthropic IPO than she'd ever made in her entire net worth of her 20s. She was bragging about how much money she made putting together an Anthropic private equity deal. Now, this isn't to say that those investors weren't doing the right thing, trying to get exposure to a great deal, right? We've seen this too with Ripple, being caught up with this link to fiasco, right? We're still going through the bankruptcy. Hopefully that'll be done soon. But there's something happening in this IPO space. And what's happening, I think, is that you have, because the access has grown so tremendously, and all of this retail is now able to get access through, becoming a sophisticated investor, becoming an accredited investor. Some of these platforms are putting deals together to allow non-accredited investors to get in, right? Which is great. We shouldn't have the accredited investor rule. I've talked about this for years. We should scrap it. If you can take 10 grand to the casino this weekend, why can't you take 10 grand to the Ripple IPO? But what's happening right now, the board of directors of Anthropic said that if we didn't approve the transfer of those shares, consider that transaction void and that equity is not valid. And so this is sending shockwaves through the IPO private equity space right now, as folks are starting to say, wait, hold up. If Anthropic can stop the transfer of this equity, right, getting passed down the line here, do I actually own shares in the company? Am I actually going to be able to get exposure to this company when they go public? And so everybody who is investing in that space needs to be paying attention. I think that our community woke up after the Link2 deal, but the rest of the IPO broader space is starting to wake up with Anthropic and what the announcements that they just put out. But why is this happening? Because the retail access has grown. And before, BlackRock and all the big boys and girls in the suits were able to pick over these deals themselves, and they didn't have this competition. They didn't have all these people trying to democratize finance and get access to non-accredited, get access to retail traders that are trying to invest in these IPOs. And so now you have way more competition. And so BlackRock has to come in on an IPO that's already 10x oversubscribed and say, hey, can we secure 13% of that today, right now? And these valuations are already going into the trillions on the Anthropic IPO, the SpaceX IPO. These are going to be some of the largest IPOs ever done. And I've already talked about how the Ripple IPO was ready to become the largest IPO ever done as well. Because the biggest one so far is Saudi Aramco at $25 billion. And there's a few lined up here now. They're definitely going to beat that by a lot. And I talked about Ripple beating that. But Ripple is going to be competing against SpaceX. They're going to be competing against Anthropic and some of these other companies that are going to be massive players going public as well too. Which I believe actually leads into Ripple wanting to go public after we've seen significant XRP price appreciation. So that valuation of their company is going to be hundreds of billions and trillions of dollars. Now, of course, I'm not here to guarantee you anything or give you financial advice. I'm just an observer. I'm just an analyst who shares my honest perspective and the moves that I'm making. And I think that you still have tremendous appreciation on the Ripple valuation along with XRP. And I think that they want to make sure that that's kind of happening in tandem so they can compete with the SpaceX IPO, the Anthropic IPO, and some of these other big players. So let me know in the comments down below. Will BlackRock move on the XRP ETF? That's going to happen. That's a guaranteed, isn't it? And then secondly, let me know what you think about BlackRock moving on the Ripple IPO. I think that could get very interesting as well too, because as soon as the word gets out on that, you know what happens to that chart. You know how silly it gets. So stay tuned for that. Check out all of our community resources down below, our sponsor, iTrust Capital. And thank you for liking this video on the way out. We greatly appreciate your support. It's going to be a busy week, so stay tuned for more. God bless you all. I am your host, Zach Rector. I really appreciate all of the love and support. If you want to support the channel, just remember that you can start by smashing that thumbs up for me, sharing this content far and wide, and everything else is at my website.